welcome back to This is Dunder Moose. I'm your host, This is Dunder Moose, and I have BDubs on the show with me, and I'm so excited. So let's get on into it. BDubs, how you been doing, man?
I'm all right. I got a little head cold thing. If I sound a little crazy, I apologize to everyone. But our intrepid host here came on while he was sneezing and
Yeah,
snorting in everyone's ears, and for like 2 hours.
yeah,
May
it's
Brown
amateur
Wizard
hour.
listened to it. May Brown
Um,
Wizard listened to it while he told him his module sucked. So if he can do that, then I can certainly show up with a little bit of a scratchy throat. So I got
right,
a shot of
yeah.
Jack here. I'm gonna try and clear it out while we're talking. So
The bar is low. The devil did not want us to have this conversation. So I'm 46, and I thought that I didn't have to worry about getting sick. I could just push it and keep all my commitments. And you guys just saw how juicy I was on camera. So don't feel bad if you got to clear your throat or whatever. I'm glad to have you. Lucky to get a shot at this.
you are. It's true. I mean, this is kind of a mid-card show. I've been at the main event with Rolling Bones. So to come down to the mid-card, it's really like I'm like Cena when he came back to help like Austin Theory, or he
Right.
give Solo Sikoa a win. I'm coming down to give you the B-Dubs rub, and I'm going to see if you can do it, my friend. And I think I believe in you, but
Thanks,
like
man.
Cena believed in Austin Theory, he didn't really deliver after. So, my time is now. I don't know if your time is now. So let's see what happens.
It is chilly here in Ryan's shadow. I will say that. I feel like he and I have been on kind of a parallel track, stuff that we're interested in. Maybe I should have him on here and we can ask each other the questions that we never get to answer because we're always asking our guests. I don't know.
I might ask you some questions, but honestly, I don't know if anyone really cares what you think. They're really here
That's
to hear me. So
that's really that's a good point. So why don't we get to it? Let's start with the Bronstein stuff, right? Because I first wanted to hook you in on something else that I saw, but um, that's what's hot right now. So can you kind of take us back to like when did the BROSR first start messing around with this patron stuff? Why is it compelling? What's good about it? And what's the part that's been missing? Because I famously referred to it as a Bronkenstein recently, looking at stuff like the Broriental Adventures or the Orc Lords. And I don't mean it like broken, I mean it like Frankenstein, right? Like it's this undead thing that we've unearthed. It's got life, it shambles around, everyone loves it, it destroys its creator. The DMs burn out and stuff. So, how did we get on this track as the BROSR? Do you think it's part of it, or do you think it was like an unnecessary side trip? And how did we get to this point right now to where a couple weeks ago I see you on Twitter saying, "Hey, Jeffro and I are talking about something in the back channel that could shake up Bronstein." So sorry if that's a very complex question.
I mean,
Let's
your
just
questions are really long. So
yeah.
I kind of fell asleep in the middle of that.
All
But
right.
I
So
heard Bronstein, I heard Patron Play.
how did Patron Play start?
Oh, good Lord. All right. So Patron Play started with Chanticleer. He and I were in the back channels on Discord. He was one of my early Dubsaron players, and he's a very good PC. Um, he was playing a thief at the time or whatever, but then he wanted to DM his own thing in 5e because I don't know, people still attached to 5e sort of nostalgically, or like being hooked on crack, or I think a lot of times it's like people are scared to switch because they don't think their friends will follow them. I think we deal with a lot of people that are dealing with that, like 5e is the hotness.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was doing the Waterdeep module, which he started out with modules, which normally would be a bad thing. Of course, Jeffro would tell you. But the Waterdeep module, if you've read the reviews or whatever, it says there's all these bad guys. Okay, that's cool. But then it said, like, pick the one who's going to be the main character. Okay, that's stupid. Like, okay, you're going to give me 5 or 6 bad guys, but one's going to be the main character. Like, how do I pick which one? Okay, why would I pick this one over that one? And he started asking me, like, well, which one should I pick? I said, well, just do them all. Just make all the bad guys out there. And he started realizing that he didn't have enough time to run all the bad guys. So he started assigning them to people. And
okay.
That was
so
kind
that
of
was
it.
his idea?
Chant definitely had the idea, but it was definitely a back channel working together kind of thing. And
was it born of innovation, or was it just laziness?
no, I think it was part of innovation. I think
Okay.
laziness and innovation go hand in hand with the BROSR for sure.
Okay.
So that's the main thing. So after that, it went well. It had some good points and bad points. 5e is not really designed well for patrons, or in my opinion, 5e is really just designed for the kind of conventional campaign stuff. And so when you start saying like, okay, well, I want to do divination or something, 5e's rules of that really suck for like real game, one time, real stuff. It gives you like a bonus when you're in the dungeon or something. So it's clearly designed. Most of the utility stuff in 5e is designed for conventional play. And what you find with real BROSR play in a grand campaign is utility stuff, rules or abilities or whatever are designed well for a real living world, like a world that's really here. And so it had its own problems. And I had a really cool patron in that one. It was a Chance kind of patron that was his brainstorm of kind of Jurassic Park plus Bronze Age pervert, which he called Dawn Age pervert. And I could work with that because I think BAP is funny, even though I think his philosophy is stupid. So I could riff on it and make a bunch of jokes about like dinosaurs and the Uberman and everything. So so that turned out really well. But what happened is I'm like, yeah, and then Jeffro played in it too, and he played the what did he play? He was the chief of police or something. He never caught me because I'm better at playing D&D than Jeffro, and always will be. But I said, okay, this is really cool and interesting. I'm going to introduce this to Dubs Ron. And I had a couple of really NPCs that were really getting legs in Dubs Ron at that time. I had Ferrigno the Green Dragon.
Mm-hmm. Who was playing Ferrigno?
It ended up being, it was Chris, who's eventually moved on to Macho Mandoff.
Oh, okay. Terrifying.
If Ferrigno the Green Dragon would not have been killed by Drakon, who's played by Brigadine, we would never have Macho Mandoff, because he'd still be playing Ferrigno as his main character. I promise you, because that was
so it's Briggs' fault.
It's Briggs' fault that Macho Mandoff made everything too easy in Tropolis, so Jeffro threw a hissy fit and went crazy. So so that's how it went down. But then not John Dacre played Darren, which was a wizard that was confounding the PCs at the time. I was like, these characters are so great, and I don't have enough energy or mental acuity to make them powerful. So I'll give them these guys. And they did some great stuff. I put Brigadine in as a legate, which is kind of like a duke or whatever.
Yeah.
At the time, it's sort of an offset. And I had another guy who was playing Valerian, which was the Keep of the Borderlands, the axe version of Keep on the Borderlands is legate as well.
The Sinister Stone of Sakara. Yeah.
That is correct, yeah. And I don't remember the guy who played him. I'm very sorry if it's somebody that's still around, but I think he might have sort of been done with Twitter. I don't think he's around anymore, but he did a fine job, but he is not kind of active in it anymore. So from there, it was just kind of built on itself, and all the crazy stuff we've seen is just to elaborate on the whole theory behind it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be having Macho on as well. My playbook's full. I've got a lit schedule, y'all. But so you can understand, like, for Battle Bronstein, why I was kind of intimidated going up against these guys, because they got notches on the belt, right, from multiple BROSR Bronsteins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they were more experienced than you, but I mean, I don't really know who you're playing. Did you hold your own, or did you get your ass kicked?
A little of both. I played Steddington, so yeah, I lost.
Okay, I wanted Steddington to survive as Chaz. Chaz, the patron evil elf that I run, wanted Steddington to survive, so it worked out. As usual,
I had minimal losses, and I assassinated Chris's character, so that was pretty satisfying.
That was my plan. You stole my jam, but that's what happens when Jeffro's in charge of things.
You're the second person to accuse me of that.
I think everyone wants to assassinate when they do these types of things.
Yeah. The guy rolled a perfect 1 on the assassination table, so it was just like, nope, he did.
That's completely insane. That's the type of stuff that happens in real D&D that you're just like, you'd have to do a double take.
Right. So Chanticleer has his famous Waterdeep campaign where all of the mob bosses, and sounds like the police and other people got the patron treatment. And how do you feel that went over? Like,
the patron stuff was great. As far as I could tell, the adventures were okay. I don't know if they were like killing it or not killing it. a couple of my players in Dubs Run were playing in that at the same time, and they reported some
Mhm.
fun sessions, and they report some frustrating sessions too. And when the frustrating sessions had to do with me as a patron annoying them, I was always loving that. So.
Is it more fun to be a patron than a player? And is that a problem?
It's more fun for guys like me because I'm kind of a person that likes to tweak people. And as a patron, you can tweak people. As a PC, it's a little harder. You can still do it as a PC, but it's not as easy. So.
Well, there are certainly people that have gotten tweaked with this style of play. Did you ever have anyone quit over something that happened in the patron game?
Do I have it? I had a patron. I've had some patrons quit. Yeah, I had. Yes, I did. I had a patron that was assassin. He was an assassin guild leader, and it was actually the other way around. The PCs attacked his guild house like with an army, and just yeah, Brigandine was there. Brigadine's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So
Brigandine is connective tissue throughout the whole BROSR.
He's in the back channels on everything. So yeah, they basically attacked his guild house and just destroyed it. Now he got away because I was rolling like his chances, like, well, this guy's a coward. I'll roll his reactions. He's probably gonna run away. Da 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 da. So he survived, but he just what happened was he thought that he could send me orders in the middle of the session. Like I'm running a session 8:30 at night every Wednesday on Dubs, and like at 9 o'clock he's trying to send me. Well, my guards at the door are going to do this. I'm like, dude, they're already past the door. I've already ran that. That's over. Like, you can't send me live orders. This is the type of growing pains we've done with patron plays. We have to kind of figure out what's going to work or not. And the players who don't wash out, like this guy did wash out, are the ones that can kind of accept the reality of this type of stuff. And
yeah,
Brigandine, I'm running a patron Brigadine's game. Sometimes he'll come to me and be like, "Oh, this happened, and you were an NPC, and you did this, this, and this." And he'll almost be like sheepish, like thinking like I'm gonna be mad.
yeah.
And I'm like, "No, dude, I'm a patron. Like, if my NPC made a crazy reaction, I did something kind of dumb and lost a resource. I don't care. Like, you know, that's
That though, that is a paradigm shift for people that like, because for me, I found that running a patron, I thought about it way more than just like a lot of times, and maybe this will get into the other topic of elite players, but sometimes you can really just not think about the game till you sit down at the table and then you run your player. But being a patron, like shower thoughts, driving to work, you're like, oh, I wonder how I can, if I'm running a bunch of trolls, I wonder how I can defend against fire. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's a good segue into something we talked about that we wanted to address, is sort of the evolution of patron play.
Yeah.
And I think my story about that assassin guy and how he got all in his feelings about getting his butt kicked is a good way to do it. Is like, okay, that's not what it means to be a patron. You're not going to send me orders step by step by step. Okay.
Yeah.
And to address stuff like that, because I'm a wizard and I've seen wizards get rocks buried in various games. Yeah, he says first time kinds of weird as a DM. You have to come to him and say, "Hey, you did this. It's weird."
Yeah.
But patrons have to be able to accept that, and I think PCs that level into that scale have to be able to accept it too.
Yes.
It's like, okay, dude, this is what you've accomplished. You're name level now, and you are now kind of the property of the campaign, but not for the sake that you are totally controlled. And what I was about to say is, with Briggs' game, I know that wizards can get killed so quickly, and I'm a wizard patron.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of contingencies of how I would meet with PCs. Tooch is my patron in Brigadine's game that he runs face to face, and I built the tower kind of like Morrowind. Like, you can't get up to his main room that he hangs out with. There's no stairs. There's no ladder. Nothing. He uses spider climb to get up there. So
Okay.
whenever PCs show up, he's like 20 feet above them, you know, on a balcony, that type of stuff. Because I'm thinking like, okay, if I was in a session, how could I get killed in like one round as a wizard? Well, you know, they'll just surround me and start beating me up for 3
But it's a particular skill to think about it at that level to where you're trying to protect them, but also hold them out with an open palm when the DM's like, I need to run a session and your guy will be there and you won't. And like, you can write up a little plan of what you want to happen, but then you've got to just trust the DM with that and let it roll. I don't know. I don't know if I can increase BDubs volume. Can you turn yourself up a little bit, man? Or maybe I'm too
Yeah,
hot.
I'll try it. Next time you ramble on, I'll turn up.
It's coming in quick. Um, maybe you can talk with an animal voice. I don't know what that would do to his throat right now, Vince.
All right, just say a bunch of crap. I'm gonna play with my mic while you talk.
All right. So the point I was trying to make is, people get attached to their characters, and for a patron where you're trying to make strategic big plays and you're trying to second guess what other people are going to do, it can be very easy to hold it too tight, such that if the DM comes and says, well, yeah, somebody rolled a 1 and your guy just got assassinated, like, there's two ways you can react to that. You can either get bummed out, or you can throw your head back and laugh and say that's hilarious, and I don't know how you get there if you've not had to experience it. Now, you say high level PCs. Like Jeffro did that to me with Foam the Gnome, he was a level 2 thief, level 1 illusionist, and he was like, all right, I need you to try to steal these eggs from a paranoid in-person party of 6 people. And I had to just like write up the plan and send it to him. And then I just waited. I remember he like started texting me while I was grilling, and it's like, here's what happened, and it kind of failed. And so I texted him back what my backup would be. But that was it. I wasn't bombing his phone. I wasn't blowing it up the whole time he was trying to play or whatever. I just had to wait and find out if I was pretty sure my guy was going to die. Didn't turn out that way. I kind of won that encounter just from a bunch of crazy things that happened. But it did lead to Goldenrod going to prison, and then you tried to help out with sending foxes for the escape, and then Bob decided that he was going to start hunting foxes, and I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and the guy just flamed out.
Yeah, the whole thing was crazy, and I cannot get my mic up, so if you can't hear me, I'm sorry. Turn up your sound, get better speakers, maybe spend some money on your audio devices instead of being a cheap loser. I don't know. It's something to consider. You can turn it down when Dundermoose talks, because I know he just rambles. I get a headache listening to him, but especially when he was sneezing on the mic a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm still not over it. I had a bad dream about it the other day.
Yeah, I think I lost some subscriptions over that one.
I mean, I wouldn't blame you. I mean, maybe you had some subscriptions of people who like want to tune in because they can relate to that type of thing. I don't know.
I think they're just oddly fascinated by the gap in my front teeth.
Good Lord. Yeah, that could be an interest to a dungeon. Look at
that. Oh, here we go, Bob Stevens. All I know is Goldenrod didn't kill herself. Well, no, you did kind of pour a little bit of flame on that when you were like, hey, I'm not going to interact with you if you don't read these 2 books. Which were the books you recommended to him?
Yeah, I told Goldenrod that he could not request help from Chaz, my patron elf thief, who's been played since the beginning of Tropolis, and he is ascended to patron scale due to will to power, not due to actually leveling, because I'm not really that high level. But I told him if he wanted to request help that he had to read The Broken Sword or King of Elfland's Daughter, because those are the elves that I like.
Yeah.
In BROSR play and the elf style that Chaz is based off of. And he said, no way, I'm not doing that. And he got really mad. And I'm like, okay. I just kind of rolled my eyes like, all right, dude, whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't actually say anything. I just kind of, all right, well, I'm not helping you.
I felt bad for the guy. There's people that come into a group and you can feel the group come around them. And then there's people that come in and it's like that when you have like a bowl of water and you got salt and pepper on the surface and you do like drop 1 drop of dish soap in it and everything just like, I mean, it wasn't quite that bad, but like there are people that like they make faux pas, and someone like Brig will take me under his wing and be like, hey dude, chill out on this. You don't know how it works. Just give it some time. Like I had a guy, Foam was locked up in prison. And I started trying to do a bunch of downtime crazy stuff to fix that situation. And I finally realized Jeffro's not going to allow anything to change the equation until we're back at the table. And it took me a minute.
That is the worst metaphor I've ever heard in my life. So congratulations. But yeah, Gelatinous Rube, He's here. He has one of the best YouTube channels for gaming on the YouTube, and he says DM will free you from sympathy. Yeah, I don't have sympathy from anyone because when you come to me with a downtime order and it's just boring, I'm angry at you. Like, please do not make my Discord alert me for something boring, please.
Don't add to the cognitive load.
No, I don't read it. It's honestly, I just kind of glance over it. And Brig will tell you this because he co-DMs Dubs Run has for a while, and it's like I just don't look at it. And I'm sorry. Good for you. You got some free items or whatever in solo play, but if it's boring, I'm done. And he's not lying. I don't lie. I never lie on these things. No matter how mean I sound, I'm not lying. I'm not kayfabing. I'm not messing with you guys. But we don't have a lot of people watching, apparently, dude, which is not as sad. Gelatinous Rube is calling us out. I knew this was going to be mid-card, but 17 people, that's a shame.
Yeah, that's what you can expect on the Dunder Moose. But getting back to, because like I was talking to Brian Reninger, Flew the Druid, and he was telling me some of the history of Stormbringer. Which like made its way from one campaign to another, which that's crazy in and of itself. But I guess the guy playing Elric got torqued off when he got struck by lightning and clubbed to death by cavemen, and so I just wonder how frequently with this style of game do we have players that like just kind of get butthurt and peace out.
Dubs runs washed out a lot of people, and everyone gets equal slice of time. Don't waste yours. Gelatinous Rube. Yeah, don't waste it, dude. Because I just look for a second, and I think I might bring in Steven, who is the wargaming guy or whatever. I don't know. What does he know? I might bring in his thing where I like check in on a certain day or something. I might let people know that that's when I'll be looking.
Steven's got a million titles. He's Purple Druid. He's World of Worth. He's a bunch of them.
Yeah. I like that idea of having like a check-in of a particular day or something so people know this is when you're going to get looked at. This is when you're going to need attention. So,
Durnal.
Dropping too many things in the chat. I don't know what you're talking about.
Durnal's here. He wants to listen to elite players and the DMs who hate them.
I love elite players. I don't think there are very many of them, but I love them.
How long does it take you to figure out if someone's going to make it when they join Dubs Run?
10 minutes.
And what's the difference?
The difference is that they get my jokes, number one. That's something Jeffro talks about a lot.
Yeah.
Number two, they want to look up their own stuff as opposed to asking questions. When you start asking me, what can this class do? I'm like, no, go away.
Go back down to the minor leagues for a bit.
Dude, go to your Living World 5e game and down at the comic book store and ask the DM there what you can do, because I don't have it for you. I'm not going to tell you what you can do. The class description's there, the class powers are there. I run Axe, which is fantastic. You all need to join the popular crowd.
That's right.
Get in on the Kickstarter. Give Alexander Macris a lot of your money because he's a nice guy, and just get in it, man. We have all the stuff. We have all the spreadsheets. Jeffro preaches against spreadsheets, which is fine. He's not as much of a nerd as some of us, but he's also not as math inclined as some of us. So we can really step it up, and we can bring the story to the game as well as the math to the game, because D&D is a math game. It's a war game.
Yeah.
Those are the things that we do in these games.
So bringing it back to the Bronsteins. So you did it in yours. You played in Chanticleers. Any other experience with running or participating in this BROSR style of high level patron play during a 1-to-1 time, always on campaign?
Yeah, I was. I played the David Lynch patron in Brovenloft.
That's right, Brovenloft.
That was fun. I got recruited into that. I really didn't have much interest. They were all in the back channel saying like, "I want to be the zombie. I want to be the mummy," and I'm like, "I'm going to be over here." And they were like, "Oh, you got to do David Lynch because you're always talking about him on the timeline." I'm like, "That's the stupidest idea ever." And then at some point, I was like, "That's not the stupidest idea ever," because Dubs Run already uses a bunch of Twin Peaks stuff for the metaphysical. I decided a long time ago that the theosophic stuff that's in 1E D&D I didn't really like as far as for Dubs-A-Ron. It also helps that Dubs-A-Ron is Axe, which is a 3-point alignment, so it doesn't really fit as well. So I was like, a long time ago for interstellar travel and that type of stuff, I'm like, I'm going to use all the Twin Peaks stuff because I can visualize that.
Yeah.
I can visualize the Black Lodge travel. And I was reading the Deities and Demigods book that was
Hmm.
talking about ethereal travel, or what's the other one? It's ethereal and the astral travel. And I'm like, I'm just going to take that. And no one can really imagine the idea of like floating through clouds. And that's boring. It's lame. It's in the Deities and Demigods. It's fine. It's useful. The monsters based in it are really, really good. The ethereal monsters, the astral monsters are cool. But I'm just going to replace all that with the Black Lodge because you can actually visualize it. And a lot of people have at least seen it or can visualize it because of my dumb timeline of walking through a room with a bunch of curtains and the crazy floor. And so that'll be our astral travel, our ethereal travel in Dubs Run.
Cool.
And stupid Blast Lodge cost my fighter a week of adventuring. Yeah, Dornall, that's what you get. Don't go in there, man. It's
Well, but
random time loss.
you gave people time back, right, with the Broncos?
The Broncos. What are you talking about?
Wasn't your area where people could buy a Ford Bronco and like just drive around off road on a SUV?
Well, here's the coolest thing, and where I thought a year ago patron play should go. You can look at my Lynch posting and kind of see where my theory on patron play was, which was I come up with a really dumb hook. I come up with some really dumb concepts and visuals and things that you can kind of grip into. And if the players think it's cool, they come to the DM and say, hey, David Lynch said this thing is here, and we're going to
Yeah.
go get it. And I didn't write up a damn thing. I didn't write a dungeon. I didn't make a setting. It's like, dude, you take it to the DM and you say that David Lynch said this thing is here, and you go for it. And Jeffro said that Lynch was the best part of Brovenloft, which I appreciate that, Jeffro. I'm the best part of most all these campaigns. So, he loved it because he was able to go to the DM and say, I can fight on the side of the Confederacy to
Yeah.
claim this particular hill. I didn't write the hill. I didn't have my troops set. I didn't know what the hook was. It was just that the DM at the time, which I think was Fluid, he was able to use my stupid tweets and turn it into something because the players were excited about it, or at least a few of them were. So, in my theory, that's what patrons really should be doing once they get to that scale, is making stuff that players can interact with.
Yeah.
That changes as you get ideas as a patron.
And that's something that I've seen in this. Like for me, one of the most compelling things about BROSR is that, and I've seen Jeffro do this. He has like a magnetic compass or a draw towards player interest and curiosity and passion. And if you seem excited about something, like that's going to get developed. And I don't know how you do that without this no prep. You are, as a DM, you are so nimble in being able to just chase what the characters are interested in, and their subconscious is like hooking these things together and giving them things to be interested about. And you don't have to like whomp it up with this huge backstory you wrote and hope that you want your players to be dragged through it as conventional play goes. Like if you got book control and you know how to use the charts, you can follow the players where they want to go, and it's wildly different than anything I'd experienced before in gaming.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's good stuff, and you're right. You got to be able to move with the thing. I talked about this with Rolling Bones and all the wrestling analogies of like, whatever the crowd wants, that's what you do. You see it in wrestling all the time. It's like, okay, this guy wants to be the good guy, but everyone hates him, so he has to be the bad guy. So it's like, it is what it is. He has a punchable face. He can't be a good guy. He has to be the bad guy. So what's Dornall saying there? Go ahead.
He said Fluid ran the Twin Peaks game. Someone, Warpig, was like, wait, are there any cars for sale? Do they take gold?
Yeah, I didn't. I had nothing in there about the about the cars. That was their idea. It was the DM, the players. I didn't think about that. I didn't give a crap about cars. I was like, my army is the Confederate army. I got these, because the dumb part of like season 2 of Twin Peaks, which everyone hates, has the part where the guy like wants to be General Lee and change the past and make the Confederacy win. I thought that was hysterical. I was like, all right, that's be my army then. It'll be, yeah.
Well, and so the person that's familiar with the like Jeffro said that because he was the only one that had watched Twin Peaks, like he gave him extra meme power, right? He said, "In the hands of my cleric, the cherry pie and coffee from the double R could heal the Confederate army." um,
Yeah, man. I mean, why not? That's what you're talking about. It's like, I think that's the way patrons need to interact, and that's what they need to be focused on, is creating good, usable stuff for the DM and the players. Like, you could put on a Twitter meme, and the players can grab it, like I do, or you can do it like in Discord. You can kind of private message them, like, "Hey, I need you to take care of this problem," and you just give it enough flavor.
Yeah,
they are pumped about it, and they come to the DM with like the aspects of it. Like, okay, it's a bandit. He's known for being this way or that way, and then they can roll with it, and they can come to the DM and like, hey DM, you're running this, and the no prep DM has to be like, well, I am, because that's what you want to do.
yeah,
And that's why you need to focus on no prep, because if a patron has an idea, it's not going to be, they're not going to have they're not going to know the hit dice of the bad guy or how much armor class he has or all that stuff. They're just going to know like what kind of hat he wears. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
that's all that really matters, because that's what the players are pumped about. So no prep it definitely aligns with this stuff and the lazy DMing type style for sure.
So I got called a nerd during Battle Bronstein by Jeffro because
well earned, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure. Well, we were talking about what happens, because it seemed like it was going to be everyone against Steddington, and we were saying, well, what happens if there's massive casualties? Is there a replenishment? And I was like, well, I dropped G1 in the middle of town, so they've got a teleportation circle that they can bring in more giants. It says so on the module, and he's like, you're such a nerd. And I was like, yep, I'm doing too much prep. I could tell.
Too much prep, my man.
Too much prep.
We talked before this, and you had all these ideas for where this discussion was going to go. That was too much prep.
Yeah.
Where does the discussion go? Nowhere. We're just talking about nonsense here. So we're just going all over the place and talking about what these goofballs, these 18 morons, are talking about in the chat. So we got to do it, man. That's
right on. So, like, okay, do you just want to keep kibitzing, or should I try and funnel it back to
funnel it back. You have your idea. You're the nerd here. It's your show. Let's
That's right. Don't you forget it. But there was a reason why we came to the Battle Bronstein, right? Like, with all the fun and crazy, awesome things that were happening. And by the way, I think the capital in the thing that BROSR play gives me that I never had before was, I want to be able to tell the after session stories that make my other friends who play these kind of games get jealous. And like, I want to have those kind of experiences, right? I get the best stories out of Tropolis. I get the best stories out of this kind of stuff. But there's been this feeling that there's something off about the Bronstein, that it eats DMs. Has that been your experience?
No, I'm better than Jeffro. It doesn't eat me, because I ignore most of the stuff that's boring. So that's part of it. First off, you have to ignore the stuff that's boring. Now, backing up, what are the real problems? The time aspect, I think, is not real. Okay, the bottleneck aspect is not real, because you can ignore the stuff that is boring. Because you can't flub me. He's right. Jeffro's right. You can't flub the dubs. It can't be stopped. I'm a better DM than him. He knows it. So the time aspect does not get to me, because I know how to just like get my players in line. I have player control, hashtag player control.
Mm-hmm.
But what is a real problem? Okay, let's discuss the real problems of 1-1 time and patrons who are elite players. Okay, Chris Macho Mandoff is an elite player, and he's an elite player that delivered on a really, really fantastic patron in Macho Mandoff. Okay, he did. And I had a parallel thing happening with Drakon, which is ran by Brigadine in Dubsron. These things happened. They basically just won. They just killed or were able to destroy or suck all the oxygen out of the room of everyone else. Now, how did that work okay for Dubsron? Here's how it worked okay for Dubsron. Brigadine's a good player, and he and I talk a lot. And he's able to see it's not a very interesting campaign if I, as a 14th level, max level dude, just go and handle all the stuff for the PCs. So, with role playing, he was able to say there's a lot of reasons why I wouldn't do these things for them. Okay. Some of that stuff's baked into Axe. We talked to Macros about it a couple times, and he says he doesn't even let, if you're like first level, you can't even talk to a guy that's above fifth level. He's not going to meet with you.
Gatekeeping.
Now, yeah, gatekeeping. He gatekeeps the NPC stuff. And then Drakon decided to install that, and he installed a timeline. Like if a PC wanted to speak with Drakon, he would roll a dice and see how long it would take to actually get him face to face.
Like a bureaucracy counter.
A bureaucracy, or I'm busy, or who the hell are you kind of counter.
Yeah.
And like when I showed up here, I'm like, who is this? I think your name of your podcast is really apropos, because you say this is Dundermoose because everyone is asking, who is Dundermoose? Who is this person? So you answer the question, this is Dundermoose. But Drakon is kind of that kind of player who's thinking on a DM level a lot, because he is a DM. And because we talk a lot and all these types of things. Now, there was a whitelist, as he says. So that was one way to handle it. So one way you can handle it is these talks with the players. Okay, this is not working. But the best patron players will be like, I agree, this is not working. They're not going to get in their feelings about it. They're going to be like, this doesn't suck. This is boring. So I know that Macho Mandoff could get there if you had that discussion with him. He's that kind of player, because I played with him as a patron. Like, he understood that the patron play can't overshadow every damn thing. So, but we decided that Sheffra decided he'd go another route. He'd be like, okay, we're going to go to a different area, a different region, because we're going to let Macho have his playground over here, but we're going to have a new one. It's kind of far away, that's outside of his influence. And look, dude, I agree with him doing that, because I started hearing, I wasn't a PC in Tropolis at that time, but I started hearing about the way that Dornall talks about this, of sort of like rounding the edges, or like making things easier, less difficulty for PCs, for players altogether, because they're thinking like teamwork against the NPCs.
Mm-hmm.
And the patrons can do this. And Macho, I believe, not intentionally, but I think there was a lot of situations where he would just give you magic items to go take care of the problem. And I ran this with a ranger that I played like 2 sessions one summer a year ago, and I had like these sweet magic items that he gave me, and it was fun. But then you start wondering, like, well, that wasn't challenging enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you need the DM to step in that case. You need a DM to step in and say, okay, you guys are having fun, but the challenge level is not accurate. It's not where it needs to be. And I think you need the oversight of sort of the alpha DM, even if you have co-DMs or sub-DMs or extra guys helping you. You kind of need the alpha DM to be able to say, okay, there's something here that isn't working. And I think I commend Jeffra for being like, okay, this is not the right approach.
Yeah.
And we need to think a different way. And we've had some disagreements if it was the right way or whatever, but I think it was fair to realize that those were real problems. You don't need a patron taking all the challenge out of the campaign. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, and so that was kind of where I started. I started off in Who Caresville. I was called Ugrecht at the time before you renamed it, because you couldn't be bothered to learn it.
My name is a better name.
Okay. And for me, I had just, kind of become aware of the BROSR in October, and like just these crazy stories that were coming out of Brovenloft. And so I put on Twitter, playing in Tropolis is on my gamer bucket list. And that's how I got the invite. Someone was like, this crazy fool. So I came in, I had read the session reports. I came in humble. I was watching the players around me to take cues and that kind of stuff. And I came into a pretty down and disgruntled group, because they were used to that total freedom that they had as patrons and players, like just the crazy. And Jeffro was like, this is no longer AD&D first edition. We need to, break it back down, start off in that mud core place and build back up. And that was kind of one of the things that Brigadine did for me, was take me aside and say, there's some other stuff going on. Just trust the process. It's all right. And so I never got to see the stuff before, but it brings up a question that I have. Total player autonomy, but it sounds like total patron autonomy is a recipe for a flattened game given a long enough time frame.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was Jeffro. I think he said recently, or maybe it was someone smarter than him, said that it was when you become ascended to name level and domain scale, you kind of become, your character becomes the property of the campaign. And I think there's some truth to that. I don't want to be like it's totally true. It's the only person that Dundermoose is the only person that trusts the Jeffro process. Well, Jeffro, that's great. You gotta have the mid carder on your side. It's fine. It's just, the tribal chief has to have his henchmen, right?
That's right.
But I think you become part of the campaign world itself, and you have to kind of think like a DM at that point. If you're thinking fully like a PC, like I'm just going to exploit and kill everything possible no matter what, it's going to be nearly impossible for the DM to challenge you. It just is. And that's fine if you want that, but you have to then look and say, okay, am I making the campaign world less interesting, less fun for everyone? And so those are the real problems of unrestrained patrons. I think patrons need to be a little bit restrained by common sense. They need to be a little bit restrained by having the campaigns good in mind. And they need to be restrained by having conversations with the DM. Where when Jeffro did flip the table and created Who Caresville and all that stuff, which I named and made it much better, that's not the approach I would have taken. Jeffro's approach to most everything is a little different than mine, but we tend to agree on the goal. We almost always agree on the goal. We just tend to disagree on the approach or the way we do things. So I think he found something. He had some interesting sessions at the low level, and I think with the Battle Bronstein he recently ran, I think he had some good mid to high level thing that was exciting for everyone that was involved based on what I've heard. I wasn't there. I was an NPC that got ignored, so he'll pay for that eventually.
He was only ignoring the boring stuff.
If he thinks anything that I put in was boring, then his judgment is much worse than I even ever could have imagined.
Right on. So it sounds like your solution to the powerful patron running roughshod problem would be more of I'm going to have a man-to-man talk with the patron, and we're going to do player control.
Yeah, man-to-man talk if they're elite, bullying if they're less than elite. Yeah, it's about right.
Right on. So, having played in Broriental Adventures, I was coming in.
I'm so sorry for you. I'm so sorry. Are you okay?
I'm fine, man. No, it was good.
Covered okay.
Good. I wasn't super invested. Again, I feel like the who is Dundermoose. I'm the outsider. All right, I'm coming in. I'm exploring. I was trying to play in a way that was player facing. Like I thought that as a patron, my job was to compete for the attention of the party and try to offer things they were interested in and try to use them to achieve goals and ends. So I was almost like a mini DM. If it had kept going, I was going to get completely destroyed and kicked out by a player who was just playing it as a war game and was like, I'm going to take over his land and I'm going to execute the people in charge of it. Right. And so I feel like if you want to cultivate the kind of patron players you're talking about that like make it easier for the DM and make it more rewarding for the players, if you run a normal, always on one-to-one war game level patron, the guys that are on board with you are going to be devoured by the guys that are selfish. And then it just gets flattened and one player wins.
Yes, I get it. The selfish thing is a real issue. And I don't have a serious issue with that because here's my approach to, can we make a game method that destroys all bad player behavior is 5e. 5e. 5e destroys the effect of bad DMs and bad player behavior by flattening all gameplay across the board. Okay? If we're going to have we just want to deal with, I'm not going to, you go ahead. What does that say?
Crafty Matt says, would not have happened under. Curator would have stepped in to stop that because his vision of the campaign is too big to fail.
Too big to fail. Curator seems like a fellow that needs a mentor. He needs a BDubs bullying him, but I'm busy. I already bullied Jeffro, so I didn't have time to do that. But I don't think you can create a campaign approach or rules approach to destroy bad player play and like mitigate it,
Yeah.
okay, or bad DM play, because that's 5e. And what that means is we have huge hit point pools, we have challenge rating, we have all the utility stuff is stupid and good for conventional dungeoneering and stuff, as opposed to flip the game world upside down. You have to be able to trust people. You have to be able to trust the men that are involved in all this stuff. And you have to be able to kind of go all in with them. And when you realize they suck, you need to be able to say, hey, you suck. Or, hey, you need to get it together a little bit. This is not working for me. This is not working. And I think that's probably why Dubs Run has washed out more patrons than anyone else, because I have those conversations, and I have those conversations the way you and I are talking right now. I don't really mess around. I say, like, this is not working for the campaign.
Yeah.
And I don't like the way you're running things, that kind of stuff. And sometimes they just really get in their feelings and they just disappear. They're done. They're out. So.
Yeah. A lot to think about. Thinking about elite players, thinking about elite patrons, and how do we develop that? Or maybe it's not our job. We just recognize it when it develops and wash out the others. But you had a bit of a heads up on Jeffro's Battle Bronstein before the rest of us. You guys were bouncing ideas back and forth in the back channel, it sounded like. What was your take when he first started telling you what his plans were?
I had no clue what he was talking about. That was the main thing. Like, what are you talking about, dude? But I just like...
Most of the players felt that way too, so...
He's been right enough where I was like, I'm just going to trust your vision. I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to promote it on the timeline so everyone's pumped about it, because everyone cares more about what I say. I'm able to promote things in a way that's just more interesting.
Yeah.
He just yells at everyone and calls them names and makes them want to like run away or hide or call them names back.
You're much kinder.
Or cancel people for being associated with him. Look, I'm the one that if you're associated with me, I should be canceled. Okay, you should be canceled for being associated with me. Honestly, if you don't get canceled after this particular podcast, I'm going to be offended.
I'm going to change my name again.
Am I not a big enough name? Am I really not a main eventer? Because it's really going to be like, because clearly the things I say are thought crime.
Yeah.
But I'm out here booking it. I'm out here like Bigger Than You Say. I'm Booker Dubs. I'm trying to make it work. I'm trying to get some momentum. And
we've had like a 10% increase in viewers since this started, so that's all to you.
They all heard that I was here, my friend, and they want to see what the finish is, honestly. But so I didn't know what he was talking about, but I knew I was excited about it. Like, he's like, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do it all in a session. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And in hindsight, here's the thing that's really ridiculous for all of us. We should all be ashamed, honestly. The fact that Jeff had to do this, we should all feel ashamed of ourselves. We've all used the word Bronstein 100 times, as if we even know what it means, because we're a bunch of goobers that act like we know what words mean when we don't. Here's the thing. We never ran a Bronstein. What is wrong with all of us? All of us should be ashamed that Jeffro had to run it. He doesn't even DM anymore. Good Lord. He had to come out of retirement. It's like Cena showing up.
Thank you, Jeffro.
Thank you, Jeffro. We're here banging away at each other. We're doing like flips into tables and hitting each other with the light tubes. We don't even know how to get real heat. We don't even really know how to get over. And like Cena Jeffro has to show up and be like, all right, you morons. How about we try running a Bronstein, even because we say the word all the time? How about we actually do it? And it's like, good Lord. It's just a shame. It's honestly a shame. Hashtag I'm a goober. I'm not, because if you check my Patron blog, I talk about this. I call it the audacious approach. I theorized that you could start a campaign with a big crazy Bronstein, because the guys who played the Bronstein wanted to keep playing in a campaign there. When I watched the Blackmore documentary, that's what they talk about.
Yeah.
The DM, I don't remember who did it, but he was like, I don't ever want to do this again. This is terrible. I hate it.
David Wesley.
This wasn't what I expected. But all the players are like, this was amazing, dude. We need to play it next week. So when you go to my patron blog on that bdubsanddragons.blogspot.com, the best place for BROSR thoughts in the BROSR online on the internets, you will see that I said this audacious approach would be great. If anyone asked me today how I would start a campaign, like, hey, I'm starting a new campaign, what should I do? I'd say, do the audacious approach, dude. Please do it. I'm not going to do it now because I'm an honorable dude, and I promised this campaign I'd run it with Axe, so it's not going to switch campaign style. It's not going to switch rule sets. I'm going to run it with Axe, even though I've come to like 1E a lot more than I did at the time. And I'm going to run it in this game world that's persistent. Because why throw away a game world? Like, why do it? You know what I mean? But if I'm starting a new one, what would be more interesting? I love Macris and I love Axe, but what would be more interesting? His setting that he wrote, sitting alone in a room, or an audacious approach, Battle Bronstein, that your group of 5 or 6 friends get together and make up all these idiotic ideas. The Battle Bronstein is going to be a much better setting, guaranteed.
Yeah. So Battle Bronstein happened in Who Caresville, and we had months of play built into it before it kicked off. Do you think you could start a campaign with a Bronstein, with a Battle Bronstein like this? And
you could do it with the players, all the 5e nerds or geeks talking about their. I have to differentiate those. I think they're important. Talking about their session 0, dude. Show up with 6 people and say, hey, everyone roll level 9 name level dude. You don't have to roll the stats. Just pick what he is and what his story is. And then pick where he is on this particular map that I'm about to put in front of you. This is like a face-to-face thing. And you say, okay, go. Now we're going to play out a month or 2 months or 3 months of you guys scheming against each other or combining to defeat some kind of existential evil or whatever it is. Whatever they find interesting. If they are like teamwork type guys, they can defeat some NPC stuff that the DM comes with. But after it's done, you have a setting. And it can be the same people who play as NPCs. And with one time, and there's something that Jeffro maybe is not thinking, I'm not sure, you can say you can also control those guys as patrons in the game if you're fair about it, if the DM signs off on it, if the King Joe wants to reward adventurer James, okay, well, you look at it and say, well, that's the same dude. He's trying to reward his own guy XP. You say, no, that's dumb. But, you can kind of review that stuff. You can kind of reveal it. You can kind of like look at it and be like, is that fair? Is that cool to what we're trying to do here? Is that fair to the type of game that we're trying to do? Is it fair to Appendix N? Is it fair to the game system we're using, either Act or 1E, or the only options worth using? And then you can go from there. And so even a campaign with just like 5 regular people face to face in your small group of friends, when you're a big loser who only has 5 friends, you can still do it. You can still do all these things. And that was the audacious approach that I introduced on the patron thing, but it was just a theory. And I think with the Battle Bronstein, Jeffro took the theory and just ran with it. And it sounds like everyone had a good time. I had
a good time.
I hope it becomes a game world thing, because I think that's what's really going to matter. When people can continue to engage with it into the future, into perpetuity, that's when it's going to kill. That's the killer app.
Yeah. And I'm interested to see how it translates to the PC level. Because if it only generates the fun stuff for itself, and that like that's all people want to do because the PC game isn't as fun, that's one thing. Also, like, how much prep would you need to do for that first one? Like, you need to have a map that they could grab land on, right? But if they were elite, you could have them rolling up their own terrain on the in the random tables at the back, right? You should probably have. We had a mix of people who very experienced mid card guys like myself, and a couple guys that it was the first time that I'd ever seen them playing. So I think Jeffro said he did about 3 hours of prep for that. Well, correct me if I'm wrong if you're still in the chat, Jeffro.
That's more than I would do, honestly. He needed to take what he did in those sessions, in those sort of Tropolis readjusted sessions, or transition sessions, or I don't know what they were called, something like, I don't know. Jeffro renamed it because he wanted to get away from Machador and the fact that Chris is just a much better player than he is a DM. But he got over there and he took it, but he wanted to use those concepts that he ran. So it took him some time to sort of probably put that into, onto a map, essentially.
Yeah.
But if I was running it straight, like I was going to make a whole new campaign, period, I would not show up with anything. 0. It was like, okay, instead of you guys telling me in the session 0, what your X card stuff is and what stuff offends you or what you want your backstory to be or whatever 5e weird woke crap that they deal with, you can say, what is a king or duke level dude that you always thought was really, really cool from a movie, a book, anything, and you just put him in the world. Just do it. It's like what we do with Brovenloft, but now you do it in a way that we can work off of, and then we can turn it into a PvP thing for an evening. If it's PvP, if it makes sense to be PvP. Now, I would probably encourage people to do PvP. I would encourage people not to be on the same side because that'd probably end up being boring and kind of, sand the edges off and make things too easy for everyone. But,
get along, gang.
Yeah, get along, gang. Exactly. Jeffro's little get along, gang thing. I would probably encourage people not to do a get along, gang, and then we'd have a cool game world after an evening of playing. Instead
How
of
many bad guys to good guys? What's the ratio?
With Dubs are on, when I'm recruiting patrons, I try to do 50-50.
Okay.
But I'm not recruiting currently. There's not anyone worth recruiting. The adventurer scale stuff is really engaging right now, and Dubs are on much more so than all the other campaigns going. So I don't really need the patrons at this moment.
So why, if we could go back, first of all, why did you leave Tropolis, and why did you switch systems when you did? Why did you go from AD&D First Edition to Axe?
I mean, you've heard Jeffro on podcasts, right? Have you heard him? I mean, you've heard him.
But I want to hear from the main event.
No, I'm just saying, like, you've heard him talk. I mean, deal with that for 4 hours every week.
Okay, I see where I misunderstood.
That's why you're mid-parter, my friend. That's why you're mid-parter. Ryan would have picked up what I was dropping right there.
Yeah.
So it's really a shame.
Well,
I'll get back on there later.
That's why people know who he is. They're like, Dunder. Is that the guy that coughs on the mic?
That's who is Dunder Moose? So 4 hours a week.
Your channel title.
4 hours a week of that was not what I was living my life for. I got kids. I got a family. I deal with enough stress and foolishness and whininess. I didn't need it. Did
you feel that you weren't getting enough attention? You needed to be the DM.
I'm already get the most attention because I'm the most interesting player. I don't need more attention. It wasn't about attention. I just looked at it. I saw what he was doing, and I was like, this is interesting, Jeffro. This is an interesting experiment. But I have like 15 ways I can improve this. And when I would introduce those ways, he'd say, oh, no, that's not what we're doing here. I was like, well, what we're doing here then is inferior to what I could be doing.
Got it.
I went ahead and did it. Now, in hindsight, there were some ways in which I was wrong because I think that 1E has a lot of things about it that are better than Axe. So now, why did I choose Axe? I chose Axe because I wanted a sandbox world that I could work with, and I had I bought all the books, and I'm like, well, this is money I spent. I don't want to waste it because I don't want to be one of those guys that have a bunch of stuff sitting on my shelf, like all the Rift Bros, and not use it. So I'm like, I have like the game world, and I have the various modules of this level range to this level range. Now, in hindsight, Dubs used about half of that stuff. And then I've found that I've actually had more fun not using that stuff. So once again, unfortunately, I have to admit Jeffro was wrong, or was right, sorry, on the anti-module stance. So
okay,
that is
what was the most valuable Axe resource besides like the main book?
The most valuable Axe resource for Dubs is probably the Lairs and Encounter book because it gives
good book.
Yeah, it gives all the stats for animals and stuff and how long it takes to train them. And what you find in D&D is, dudes, people always want to train animals, dude. It's crazy. It's like every campaign, everyone's be like, well, how long does it take for me to train the griffin? Like, good Lord, I don't know. And and the other thing about me switching to Axe is I'm one of these DMs as I get really I don't get anxious about much, but I get anxious about making house rules that then end up being house rule to the house rule to the house rule, like a house of cards. It's where
Yeah.
things don't make sense. It bothers me because I'm OCD and stuff like that. So, um, the fact that Axe just had information on how long it took to train the animal instead of me just making up a number worked well for me.
Yeah.
So, I knew how long it would take to train the animal and that type of stuff, or how long it would take to, um, travel from here to here, or how much money you could make on a trade route, whatever. And I don't know. And it basically was like, I don't have to make a house rule about that because I've run so many campaigns where I made house rules about stuff that then came up back to bite me.
How did it come back to bite you?
It comes back to bite you mostly for my OCD. Players don't care as much as DMs do, at least in
That's
the case
true.
of me, because it's like, okay, I made this house rule, but then I realized that it doesn't really fit with this other house rule I made a week later. And the animal voices. Robert Morgan, here he is. He follows me to these podcasts because he is a bro. He has my back. I noticed he wasn't on like the Rolling Bones the week later. He just is. He's got my back, and I appreciate that. He was one of the early Dubs were on PCs.
Okay.
Certainly one of the most important Dubs were on PCs. He has Briar Whisper, which was a elf ranger who ascended into patron scale, and then he had was a guy Mad Eye, the adventurer, the trader, the guy who was the merchant who ascended into patron scale as well, but on like a different type of thing, like on all the economic stuff. So
I don't think this is the first time Animal Voices has come up in the chat. What's going on there?
my players really, really like to make me make animal voices. They like to speak with animals so that I will make an animal voice. So they are basically children. My players are all kids. They think it's hysterical. I love you too, Robert Morgan. Please pray for me, everyone here, especially Robert Morgan, because I think he's more holy than all of you here.
Yeah, I can't get mad at him for that. I have really enjoyed Jeffro doing the voice of Lenny the Burrow Owl. As a gnome, Foam is able to communicate with burrowing creatures, and so it is a special kind of joy getting your DM to really buy in like that. And I think Black Lodge Games would appreciate the acting as well.
I fell asleep during that comment. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was so boring. No one cares.
I gotta throw a sneeze in every now and then there to punctuate it. Just punch.
Yeah, do you want to like sniff into the mic? I've coughed a couple times. I tried to mute, but I think a couple of them I got caught. Yeah, Robert Morgan also ran Mantonio, who was a fighter who got to level 5, but then got killed, but then got made into a petty hero, which was like a recognized by the temple in Dubzaron. So when you do summon a hero, you summon him.
Oh, cool.
When you cast the summon hero spell, you actually summon that dude. So it's pretty cool if you're lawful. All squirrels are Jerry Seinfeld, Gladys Rue. I agree. Who are these acorns?
Nice. All right. Well, I want to respect your time. You got a family. It is 10:04. Is there any topic that you were like hoping to talk about, and you're like, man, this guy just kept whipsawing the conversation this way and that? I really wanted to come in here and talk about this.
Not really. I mean, when we initially talked, when you reached out to me initially, it was about the fact that most PCs are terrible players and are horrible in every single way. They waste everyone's time, and then they have the gall while they're scrolling Bejeweled to come and say that their DM is wasting their time for rolling a couple of random rooms that helps them exist in a fantasy world that is a sandbox. Now, that was my initial thing where you came to me like, man, this is really interesting what you're saying about this PC suck stuff. That's a really great thesis. PC suck, hashtag PC suck. And I was like, yes, it is an interesting thesis because it's true. We all have those stories. Okay? Every single one of us has had to sit and wait for some idiot to look up his spell. Look, Gelatinous Rube, I do not disagree with you. I just think that your rhetoric is really, really bad because no one has really thought about the fact that, man, this DM makes me wait. You're probably the only dude that's ever done that, my man. And I think it's because you are the really, really great player and a really, really great DM. So the thing about rhetoric is it has to speak to people. And to speak to people has to be true to more people than it's false to. Now, what's true to most people is they have to wait for the moron to look up his spell. Okay? They have to wait for the moron to see if he made the hit damage. Hey, DM, I rolled a 12. Does that hit? I don't know, moron. You tell me. You have the chart in front of you.
Hey, can I ask you a question, Dubs? You don't have a beard, do you?
I mean, I have a 5 o'clock shadow sometimes.
Okay, you might want to cover it if you go over to Rube's house.
What's going on with rubes and beards? Like,
ask Rick Stump.
fetish? What are we talking about here?
Oh, yeah, I'll just let you. If you're interested to try and find my channel again, if you can on Google.
I will never visit your channel ever again.
Okay, so also, are you right now beefing with Rick Stump? Because like for like 2 episodes in a row there, he was beefing with John Mollison right before he came on my show. He was beefing with Rube right before he came on my show, and Rube dropped probably the most explicit comment we've ever had on This Is Thunder Moose.
All right, you continue talking. I'm going to get a drink while I continue to ramble, as you seem to be very good at. I'll be right back in 1 minute.
Okay, he's going to go after your beard, is what I'm saying. So it will be obscene and biological. What happens? Oh man. Yeah, so any tips on how to get better at being a YouTube host? Go ahead and put them in the chat. Good, Rube. I'm doing good, man.
I didn't listen to any of that because I have headphones I took off. So let's talk about Rick Stump. Let's discuss Rick Stump, okay? Rick Stump appears to be a very good guy who goes to church and is a nice person, okay? He's an older gentleman, and he appears to be a patriarch of his family.
Yes.
And I respect him for that. And I pray daily that I will get on his level as far as virtue and holiness and my familial situation and my patriarch status, okay?
Right on.
I do. Now, with that said, I think that he's a bit jealous that we are so awesome in the BROSR.
Okay.
The guys like Jeffro are just killing it, despite the fact that they might be functionally retarded. And guys like me can run a stupid system like Axe, despite the fact that it's part of the popular crowd, and make it work as good or better than 1E at D&D. I don't think he was ever prepared to let go and allow total player autonomy. And based on what I've seen of his blog, because I've read it for years, that he did allow total player autonomy. I believe that there was a real aspect of loving his own NPCs and wanting to deliver his own NPCs and make them work. Now, more power to him. This patron stuff, as we just discussed in this last hour of just painful, just roundabout conversation where we had to listen to whoever Thunder Moose is talk about things. We've decided that patron play needs a lot of work. Okay, there's some problems. So maybe he's right. Maybe this experiment was never meant to be. But we're excited about it. Yeah. We're having a good time. The internet's having a good time. Brovenloft had everyone pumped. It just did. Tropolis News Network had everyone pumped. Dornall chimed in earlier that he was just pumped about it. He's been trying to chase that high ever since the Tropolis News Network. And that was not even a Bronstein that made a lot of sense. Jeffro just introduced some ideas and like, okay, go for like a month. And Chaz was in there. You know, I had my point in there. But maybe it needs some work. So maybe Rick's right about that stuff. I don't know. But here's the thing. I feel like there's more charity towards your fellow man and your fellow D&D player of allowing total player autonomy, of letting it go, of letting go of your campaign. Don't hold it in an iron steel grip. Because it's probably stupid anyway. Okay? Most of the stuff that we have in our D&D campaigns is really not that cool. It's kind of ridiculous. And people get on me, and I'd like to make friends, and I'd like to restart with Black Lodge Games because he made fun of Muppet Atlantis, and I got really in my feelings about it. In hindsight, I was not flubbed, okay? In hindsight, I was actually really sick that day. And in hindsight, I realized, and I talked about this with Jeffro on the back channels, I was not mad for myself. I was mad for my players because Muppet Atlantis exists because player input. Okay? It didn't come from me. I didn't sit around one day and say, you know, it'd be really cool as Muppet Atlantis, because I don't think about introducing the coolest possible dungeon, because that's not how I approach D&D. I just told you, just the way I've been on this podcast, I approach D&D with how can I tweak people? How can I twist something to make them react? How can I make them laugh? How can I make them annoyed where they want to kill my character? I love that crap. I don't really care about making the coolest dungeon. I don't care about making the most interesting. Don't interrupt me. I don't care about doing this stuff. And what I care about is making people react and getting player engagement from other players to my player, because it gets attention on me and it makes me laugh. That's what I care about. So I think that's where Rick is a little different than the BROSR as a whole, and certainly different from me. But I have no personal beef against him. I think Gelatinous Rube was maybe a little too far with that, but that's a Zoomer thing, man. They play video games all day. They're video game kind of blurred out. They just see things as like ones and zeros, I think, like the Matrix. It's kind of crazy, honestly.
How did Muppets show up in your campaign? Because, like, weren't you giving Jeffro guff about how gonzo things were getting in his, and like you were like on Axe and you're on that Byzantine late
Jeffro loves to bring that up, but he's, as usual, he misses the point. Jeffro brings up that I didn't like Gonzo at the beginning. I didn't like Gonzo at the beginning because I was taking the Axe stance of things need to have an economic sense. Otherwise, you're attacking the location, the point of interest. It's not going to make any sense. If you don't keep up with how much money the orcs have or whatever, it's not going to make any sense. If the city's economic system is nonsense, then sacking the city is nonsense.
Yeah.
Those were the initial discussions we had in the back channels of that. So it wasn't the fact that I don't like Muppets in the game or whatever. I don't care. I don't really care. Why Muppets are in the game is because Brovenloft was stealing my thunder, and Vince McMaximus made a wish. And at the time, the meme on the channel, do you remember the meme about a year ago or whatever? It's like, what movie could you make where everyone was Muppets except for one character? You remember that meme? Okay. Vince McMaximus made a wish to be lawful so that Drakon wouldn't kill him. Okay? That was the bottom line. He's a wuss. He didn't want to get killed by Drakon because Drakon kills everyone. And so I thought, okay, what can be the monkey paw for this wish? Because every time you make a wish in Dubs Run, there's going to be a monkey paw situation.
Right on.
So I was like, okay, Vince stays human, but everyone else in the world becomes Muppets. So that was the thing. And so for like 2 weeks, a week, I don't remember what it was, in the middle of October last year, everyone was Muppets. And people had fun with it. They made some good jokes. Vince has some really, really, really good memes. All right, go ahead.
He was forced to make that wish on threat of death.
That's what I'm saying. Drakon had him like imprisoned or something, or had him face to face. Drakon just kills everyone. He's killed all my best patrons. The fact that Dubsaron still has any interest at all with all the best patrons getting murdered by Drakon is a testament to my DMing skill primarily, but also secondarily to the players that we have.
So how long were they Muppets? Are they still Muppets?
I think it was a week or two.
Okay.
I made it a limited time. I should have made it forever until they fixed it, like they could fix it or whatever. But I just wanted to have a fun moment. But then anyway, but that got everyone thinking Muppets. And a week or two later, or sometime after that, they found a really interesting collection of layers and stuff Robert Morgan had found. And we're like, man, there's so many evil dragons here. This has to be something bigger than just a lair. There has to be something going on here. So that was how we came with Muppet Atlantis. And I also had a player who was really interested in tech items for his space PC or whatever. So we had to have a place to drop the tech items.
Vince says, the one time I got careless is the only time I get a shout out. That's life for you.
Look, Vince is one of the best patrons, okay? He is a slimy snake. He found a way to survive in a world with Drakon. He was in the same city that Drakon wanted to take over. He was chaotic, and he's like, you know what? I'm just going to shift lawful so Drakon won't murder me. I'm going to keep everyone liking me. There's something to be said for being likable. It's sort of being the cool heel, and that's what Vince is, man. He fits into the cool heel perfectly, just like real wrestling and Vince McMahon himself. So it's a great character, and I'm thankful to have him part of Dubs Run for real.
Right on.
But I'm not in any hurry to leave, man. How long
Oh.
do these things normally go? I don't care.
Well, I try to keep them to an hour, but I don't know if I've ever succeeded yet because I just get fascinated with where we're talking about and stuff. So I'm not gonna cut you or anybody off. So if you got more stuff you want to talk about, stuff just burning to get off your
Well,
chest.
look, you were fanboying me in the back channel. You were a real stan in the back channel.
Yeah.
So, do you have any? I mean, if you have any other questions, I can riff on just about anything.
I'm just fascinated with the early history of the BROSR. Like, how was it starting off with these ideas? Were people as caustic back then as they are now? Did you have to fight
so.
for air? It was more. Okay.
Yes, you had to fight for air. If your idea was stupid, you would get ignored. So I can tell you an early history of Chaz.
Yeah.
Chaz was my first session of Tropolis was, I think it was like session 10 or something they had played, and I was like, I'm gonna jump in. I've been reading on it on Jeffro's blog and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in this, and I rolled a thief, and I made him an elf because I was min maxing and I wanted to have all the elf sneaky stuff, and I was gonna make him like one of my old third edition PCs, which was like kind of like a thief with a heart of gold.
Mm-hmm.
And number one, you can't actually do that in 1E because thieves can't be good. So they can't be chaotic good in 1E. They can't. They have to be neutral or worse.
Yeah, that's right.
And then John Mollison showed up and sucked all the air out of the room with his paladin for one session and tackled the succubus or whatever the hell it was and just beat her up. And I had to sit there bored in this session while they looked up grappling rules for 3 hours. And I got a headache and I got drunk. And so I was there, and at the end, I made some sort of joke about Chaz. At that time, the Seattle thing with Chaz and the goofy.
Yeah, the Chaz and the Chop.
I made a joke like, oh yeah, Chaz, and he's like those guys, but he's all about elf supremacy instead of other stuff. I'm not going to say it on your thing, but and then everyone was like, they just laughed. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I got something here. They got their interest. My guy literally did nothing that session except follow people around, but I got a laugh. So that's the character.
But you were super bored that they paused it to get the rules right.
Oh God, yes. I totally disagree with Jeffro about getting the rules right. I mean, that's I kind of get where he's coming from. And when you're doing experimental stuff of like, I want to run 1E rules as written, I want to get the rules right. I get it.
Yeah.
So I kind of get where he's coming from, and in hindsight, it was good because the grappling rules in 1E are amazing. They're really, really, really cool. So I'm glad we got it right because 2 years later, I'm running in Macho Mandoff as we're DMing, and it saved our bacon to have one of the fighters grapple the boss or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was because, and I'm like looking, I'm like, man, I remember when I was so bored about these rules. Now I'm digging them. So it's like, unfortunately, he was right again. I hate it. I hate to admit when he's right, dude, but I have to because I'm an honest person.
I had a similar experience with Macho Mandoff last week where I was running a monk and we had opened a chest. I checked it for traps, didn't find any. Opened the chest. The actual trap was that all of the coins were coated in this poison. And I just immediately started counting the coins. And so we had to try and figure out, okay, what are the poison rules? And so we stopped the game. Everyone got out their books and we read through the poison rules. And the guys that have assassin characters on the side were like taking extra special notes. Oh, this kind of poison, it does this and that. And I just thought it was so counterculture to the mainstream way that people talk about these games, where they're like, well, just make a ruling in the moment so you don't ruin immersion. Right. And I was like, no, here's guys that like care about the game so much that it is more interesting for us to learn about how poison works than to just keep the scene going. And like that struck me. I thought that was interesting.
I think it's easier to do that when you're dealing with 1E because it kind
Yeah.
of looms so large. It looms so large in our minds. Like it's the magnum opus of the guy who created all of this. You know what I mean? People talk about Arneson, but it's fine. And that's cool that we can kind of go back and say, hey, this guy was involved too. But Gygax is the guy. I mean, he's just the guy.
He's the guy that wrote it down, that published it, that got it codified.
Yeah, he got it codified. And his writing is very interesting. His approach is interesting. And his way he talks is actually, honestly, when you look at it, it's kind of similar to Jeffro. It's like, okay, when you see what he talks about, how people annoy him, or the players, the PCs are annoying, or they play badly, or whatever, it's like, you're like, oh, Jeffro could have said that, or BDubs could have said that. It's a similar thing. So being able to pause for that makes more sense. When you're talking about one of 550 retro clones, or it's like, it's really hard to really get people to be like, look, we're going to get this right.
Yeah.
I meet somewhere in the middle. I'll slow down a game to look up some rules, but if it's really, really deep, I'm like, does anyone really care exactly how Axe works, like to that degree? No, they care about exactly how 1E works to that degree, but maybe not Axe.
So how committed are you to Axe Raw? Like do you do side initiative, or is that like just not even on the table?
No, I do an individual initiative.
Okay.
That's what's in Axe. And I've thought about ways to do side initiative because I like it better, but there's really no way to build it into Axe. And Macros has even like told people in the Discord, like, please don't try it. Don't do it.
Okay.
It won't work. It's like, all right, dude. Like, I think it's better, but there's no way to build it and keep the relative strengths and weaknesses of the classes the same.
So Crafty was on Ryan not too long ago talking about scrubs, and I noticed he says, "I appreciate it. My job of telling everyone to RTFM is a thankless job." There's been a lot of like just waves of people not getting it, like not getting that you can win at this game, and it is just, I don't know. I've been called the baby face of the BROSR, but I'm starting to see the irritation of what you guys must have just been dealing with for years, of like, you explain the same things over and over again, and people are aghast that you would suggest that you need to follow all the rules in the book. They're like, well, doesn't the book tell you to ignore itself? Doesn't the book say to make up your own game? Right?
Crafty Matt is awesome. That was a great podcast. I loved it. It was terrific. He did not talk about the things that I bullied him into talk about, which made me annoyed, but also made me respect him. It's a weird dichotomy there. So I give him credit. I'm sure he could destroy me in any fighting game, even though I've actually played fighting games when I was a kid pretty well. I'm decent at Street Fighter, but I think he probably would destroy me. But you do need to get good, and you need to read the rule book, redacted rule book. And I don't know. Like I said, I've explored a lot of reasons why people don't like that idea. I explored a lot on Rolling Bones. It was just, they're not there for that. They're not there to play the actual game. But I think we've, honestly, the BROSR, we found a group that wants to read the rule book, and they're okay with that. And it can get annoying. Like I said, when I was with Chaz, I was like, are we really going to stop for an hour and read these rules? And then we would like roll like one dice and like, okay, that's confusing. Let's read some more. And I'm like, I zoned out, and like I said, I went and made a mixed drink. So it's one of those things. It's like a weird back and forth. You kind of have to deal with it as best you can. And but it was worth it in hindsight. It's like, I get it. I don't really understand the 1E grappling rules now, but I understand the intent behind them now. I don't tend to play martial characters, so it's not something I would really worry about too much. But if I did, I'd be like, man, I would dive all in on those, and I'd make that a big part of my thing. Now, I haven't talked about, I wanted to shout out a couple people before we go, and one of them is Jared, who played Fagor in the early Tropolis games. He and Chaz were just like hand in glove of trying to do things, and we broke the Siege of Tropolis. But one of the things he did, because we had that session of figuring out the grappling rules, he realized that the most win at RPGs thing that you could do with those grappling rules is to hire a group of sumo wrestlers to tackle people for you. So with him, Chaz and Fagor and some other guys that were around at the time. I don't remember you, and I'm sorry because you all were really good players. So I'm sorry I don't remember your names. We would have our group of sumo wrestlers just go in and tackle people. Because if you look at the grappling rules, being a big fatso with no armor,
yeah,
advantageous. So this type of stuff is like, okay, you look at it like that's kind of dumb, but then you think like, wait, it's actually kind of awesome.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool.
That would totally work in the real world too, is if you just send in like 5 sumos to just grab everybody and like plop them down.
Why not? So Jared and Fagor were not there when we I was there with Skylar Hernstrom.
Oh, okay.
And
There's a big name.
Yeah, and that was another reason why I left Tropolis, because he stopped showing up, because I just loved playing with him. He was so cool, and he had such cool ideas. Everything you read in his books, he could come up with that stuff on the fly in session. And Jeffro calls him out in his win at D&D book. His character was the Hobbit or whatever. Someone will tell me the name of the Hobbit. But Druggo. Chaz trained him to level 2 thief.
Nice.
We ran. Chaz was level 2, and we ran. He was level 1. But we went into this thing with some clerics. We went into this dungeon. It was just thieves and clerics.
Okay. It's an odd mix.
It was. But we were able to use the grappling rules with the clerics. We're like, man, and we came upon a son of Kyrus, which is the guy who shoots the friggin' the worms out of his eyes that turn you into a son of Kyrus or whatever it is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's an insane undead creature. But we had the clerics like grapple him and throw him in this pit that almost got us. So we were able to win this impossible fight because we kind of knew the grappling rules. So it's just one of those things where it's like you think that you don't want to draw completely, but then as you start to play it more, it's like the game world itself starts to flesh out and make more sense to the rule system itself.
So Jeffro says this dungeon was designed for the party that was playing 2 months before.
Once again, proving why prep is terrible. Do not prep. Never prep a dungeon. If you prep a dungeon, you are out for trouble. You're looking for problems, my friend.
Right on. So tell me about the Siege of Tropolis. Like that. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is like these are things that you guys just played in a game, but like it feels like a major historic event. Like especially for those of us like Winston and me who like read the session reports and are like that was my critical role reading those things.
The best part of the Siege of Tropolis is that Jeffro thought he was winning. That's the best part.
Well, set it up for us. What was the Siege of Tropolis?
All right, so these orcs and Apaches were sieging Tropolis. Jeffro thought it'd be really funny or cool or whatever to have us not be able to get economic things. If you see a theme here, it's Jeffro trying to keep resources from his players. Okay, so that's the theme.
You mean like giving them a jar of wheat pennies as their reward for going into the dungeon?
They probably deserved it, honestly. If he's involved in that, he probably earned that. That's about what he earned, I'm guessing. But there was a siege that was cutting off all the markets and whatever. I don't know. And I barely cared. Every time we went out into the wilderness to do dungeoneering, we had to sneak by the siege, and we found a path through the dungeon to do it. There was a dungeon under the city. You go into the siege, come out the other side of the siege, blah, blah, blah. We just got tired of it. And me and Jared, who played Fagor, just started talking about how can we break this thing? No prep November. That's right, Robert Morgan. So how can we beat this siege? And we started, okay, how you beat the siege is you got orcs and Apaches. It would probably not be that hard to turn them against each other. That was our number one thing.
Okay.
Me and Jared would go. We read the Player's Handbook chapter on elite PC play. So we wanted to prepare. So we started thinking like, okay, how can we make? There you go. So we talked about that beforehand a little bit. How can we make the orcs mad at the Apaches? Well, clearly you have to make the orcs think the Apaches attacked them or killed them or did something to offend them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was all back channel talk, dude. This is what we talk about with people thinking about these games during the week. Dude, we thought about it every day. Yeah. That was another thing with why I went to Dubs, where I was like, I couldn't handle the stress level anymore of always thinking about it and having like so few wins. Like I probably I played like 10 sessions. I think I actually had a win against Jeffro like maybe 4 times, and that's not going to work for me. That works in MLB. You can bat 300, 30% or whatever, and you can be a champion. But it just wasn't working for me. I was too mad all the time. And so anyway, we were like, okay, so we have to convince the orcs that the Apaches betrayed them. Okay, so how do you do that? And we didn't have a total game plan. We're like, okay, we'll just plant some evidence. We'll plant evidence. And this is one of those no prep kind of things, is that we went to the Apaches, and I had a thief, Chaz the thief. He snuck into the Apache tent and grabbed some feathers and ran away. Jeffro thought he had me. Oh, ho, ho, they saw you leaving. Ha, 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 ha. I'm gonna attack you with some of their raiders. And we killed the raiders, and we took their horses, their painted horses or whatever. And Jeffro thought he was winning, but that actually worked in our favor because we had Apache horses and headdresses now, not just a couple of feathers that Chaz stole from their tent. So then we took it, we rode in on those horses and desecrated their mud pile that they like to like do mud baths in or whatever, and planted like a single Apache eagle feather on it and like laughed at them as we left. And then we ran back to the city and then just watched the orcs kill the Apaches. That was it. It was like the stuff you hear about what you're supposed to do in Caves of Chaos with faction play.
Yeah.
But it was just better, and it worked better because our idea was kind of dumb. But
so did Jeffro do a reaction roll to see if they would blame the Apaches, or was he like, nope, you guys did it. That was it?
Oh, I don't know. Who the hell knows what Jeffro does? So we went back to the city and we watched from the city wall. And because I'm BDubs, we ordered some Buffalo Wild Wings. We sat on the top of the city wall and we ate some buffalo wings and just watched the orcs kill the Apaches. And orcs are so stupid that after that they just kind of dispersed and stopped. That was it. It was that simple. It was great. But it was like there were so many things that could have gone wrong. But most of the things that Jeffro thought was going wrong for us were actually going right. He just didn't know it. That was my favorite part about it. And you can see that in the session report. He makes comments about that. He's like, I thought I had him. I was going to kill him. But they actually took the horses and used it against me. It was great. So good.
Right on. So how long after you broke that did you decide, all right, I'm done here, I'm starting my own thing?
I think it was probably 5 sessions. I played a couple without Jared. Had kind of been less active as Fagor. We did a couple dungeon delves, and then I did a couple of really good things with Skylar Hernstrom. And then when he basically came to me, he's like, all right, I'm busy, I can't do this anymore. I was like, my enjoyment lately had been kind of making plans with him. The stuff that he came up with was zero prep, because Jeffro, just like I've learned to be, and I definitely am now, of seeing what the PCs have and kind of riffing off of it. He was already kind of pushing that.
Yeah.
Hernstrom was already like, look, I have an idea, and this is the flavor of the concept, the flavor of the character, and you need to work with it, DM. And he was probably the one that pushed that early the most, because that was I don't know what session of Troop is, probably like 20 or less. So that was probably the time we started realizing you have to be able to see when the players say stuff, what they really want, and like give it to them.
Yeah.
Not like treasure and stuff like free XP, but like feel and campaign feel and campaign concepts and storylines and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And not just because they wrote a backstory, but because they're bringing you something that's active, current story. And I think that's one of the major things that BROSR does that no one else is really doing to that degree. And I think it's definitely what we have over everyone else running stuff right now, OSR or sort of new school people.
So you guys are playing in a way you hadn't played before. You're getting these results that you didn't get out of conventional. Like, did you play conventional before, or was it just you started like this?
No, dude, I've played conventional forever. I was the forever DM in high school.
Were you initially resistant?
No, I was not, and it's because it's an online thing. So I was like, well, if this sucks, I can just disappear, and just install these people. So, right. But I never felt that way because it was during kind of COVID lockdowns and stuff. And
yeah.
I'd always liked Jeffro's book before I even met him online. You know, I've read his book a lot, and I reread it because it's a really good. The Appendix N book is really good when you're just like, I don't want to start a new novel. I don't want to start a new story. I just want to read a couple things before bed. So it's really good for that. And Jeffro was trying to do things at that time with that book that the OSR should have been doing, but wasn't. You know what I mean? Like exploring Appendix N in a real deep way.
Yeah.
And he aligned really well with my value system with that. And um, he certainly aligned really well with my value system about what D&D is about with that. You know what I mean? So when I had the opportunity to start talking to him online, for me, I was like, oh, this is cool. And, you know, never meet your heroes because he's not as cool as he seems in his book. But he's still a really cool guy. He's a good guy. And when he started doing a D&D game, I'm like, oh, man, this is good. And we all knew jumping in because, like, this is the guy that wrote the Appendix N book. We all have to show up with our Appendix N bona fides.
Right.
You know what I mean? We have to be here with it. And
you have to know what you're talking about. It's a genre simulator, right?
Yes. And that's why I showed up with Chaz, who was this dumb idea of this elf supremacist, but it was colored by Dunsany in Broken Sword. You know what I mean? Because I thought in Three Hearts, Three Lines a little bit, although that's a little bit less dark than what I was going for.
Broken Sword is a surprising book. If you like the first time, because I went straight from Three Hearts, Three Lions into Broken Sword, and like at the beginning of that book, it's hard to find a good guy, right? Like,
no, it's a tragedy. It's
yeah.
Those two books are fantastic because Three Hearts, Three Lions is a comedy, and Broken Sword is this tragedy of the same kind of stuff. I absolutely love those books. If you don't like those books, you cannot play in Dubs Wrong. Okay. If you deny either of them for whatever, you're out, because that is where I'm kind of basing what I want out of fantasy. You know, I love the comedy aspect of Three Hearts, Three Lions has a lot of elements of the Catholicism and morals and virtue, and then the darkness of Broken Sword and what fairy tales really are about.
Yeah.
And what real hard fantasy is about is in Broken Sword. So if you're not into those, Dubs Run's not really for you. But so I had all these concepts and I brought them to Chaz, and we all tried to bring Appendix N concepts because we're like, you know, we weren't as familiar with Jeffro where we could say all these bad things to him. We're like, okay, he's this guy who wrote this cool book, and we're these goobers online. You know, I mean, I had more followers than him at that time, but still, I was like, I still need to deliver something good for his campaign because he deserves it. He's a guy that wrote these really great essays, and we all did, and that was why I think Tropolis really had legs at the beginning, is we were all trying to deliver something fantastic, and that was Appendix N. Like it aligned with Appendix N really well. Like I said, we had the Street of the Gods from Fafhrd and Grey Mouse, or Tropolis was obviously. It was obviously Fritz Leiber stuff. It was clear as day.
So you guys start playing this new way, and it's fun and it's exciting, and then you start sharing that perspective and online, and then the resistance happens.
Oh, I don't know. I think everyone was kind of against Jeffro for a while. The OSR, and I made a joke about this on Rolling Bones, they never really liked him, you know, because the stuff he was saying in the book was a little too deep. And I kind of zoomed in on this as kind of a trad Catholic kind of guy. Like when I was reading the book, it's like, this guy's a little more trad or a little more socially conservative than people might guess based on these essays. Like there's something going on here. And now I've talked to him, and we certainly are that way. And now he's openly that way. He talks about, like, hey, you better go to social dance or you're a big loser. You loser. You know, it's like you can tell that's the deal.
Only Christians can play real D&D.
Yeah, only Christians can play real D&D. That actually came from Bluegrass Papist. That was his thing.
Okay.
So give credit where it's due. That's at Bluegrass Papist, who's he's one of the backroom guys in the BROSR. He doesn't play much, but it's where we got that concept, and he's right. So I always had this kind of thing, like, okay, I kind of got that there was something more going on here in this book than just I read these books. Like if you read Goodman Games and the way they rate the DCC modules based on it's all surface level stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's a princess or there's a guy who jumps really high from John Carter or whatever. But the value system from those stories is not in any of their modules.
Do you think that's why there's so much resistance now? Do you think it's not about rules as written so much as it's about preserving the culture that we've lost from a better time?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I touched on this a year ago. I made some tweet that Jeffro was like shocked by that he quote tweeted. It was like, wow. It was it was it was around the time when it was very clear that every owned fantasy or sci-fi property was being turned against its fans. The brand zero stuff with Star Wars or whatever. And I said something like the BROSR is the only place where you can have these fantasy worlds that exist for you, or you can, you have these fantasy worlds that are like aspirational. I don't remember the exact quote, but it was I made
Yeah.
a comment something like that.
I
And
feel
Jeffro,
that, man.
yeah, and Jeffro was like, "Wow, the only place. This is big," or something like that. And then he always can kind of feel like what's big. And my point is like I feel like the BROSR at this point, we're still arguing about prep, no prep, and stuff, and that's so stupid. It's such a waste of time. But what the biggest thing is that we're providing a place where people have these fantasy worlds that they can invent for themselves that reflect themselves and reflect their aspirations. And I talked about gatekeeping a lot on Rolling Bones, but the gatekeeping is not just about keeping the geeks out. It's about keeping your aspirations high and keeping something that you can do that you believe in. Like, you read John Carter books and it's like, okay, is this guy Mary Sue? It's not really about it being a Mary Sue because he is good at everything, but it's more about like, don't you want to be like this guy? You know what I mean? It's not that he doesn't have any difficulties, and he is good at everything, but you definitely see where he learns as he goes. Like, he gets better dealing with the social stuff. So I don't think he's a Mary Sue in that way. But the fact is, he's an aspirational character of like, you want to be a virtuous person, you want to be a virtuous man. And it's mostly for men. And honestly, there's only guys in this chat room right now. And I would be shocked if any woman ever listens to this podcast ever.
Or any of my episodes.
Yeah, or anything you've ever done, or anything I've ever written. So it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, so what does that mean for us? For me, the reason I'm still doing this, number one, it's a hobby I enjoy.
Yeah.
I love the one-to-one time stuff. I'm going to explore the Battle of Bronstein, but I'm also keeping the 1-1 stuff going. But number two, which is even more important, I want a place where there's a fantasy world that is aspirational for young men. I have 3 sons. I want to be able to let them live in this world as a D&D character when they get old enough to play these games. And Dubs runs a dark place, okay? But it's also a crazy place. It's also a goofy place. And it's also a place that delivers on whatever the player really, really wants if it catches people's attention. And if it doesn't, I will tell you, that sucks. This is boring, and I'm not doing it. Okay?
Yeah.
But if it's exciting, if it's aspirational, if it's defeating real evil, and I'll make sure the evil is super evil because it would be a big evil to destroy to really feel the success, then I'm going to deliver it because that's what I'm all about and what I'm going to DM.
Right on, man. I mean, we started off with Muppets, and I feel like it got profound, but I think there is a deeper Narnian magic here to this stuff, and there has to be for people that like to play role playing games to like reject it so instantly and wholeheartedly. There's something more than the game that they are reacting to, and it is the culture that says, you know what, masculinity is virtuous and not toxic, and it's okay to have heroes that kick ass and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, toxic masculinity, that's such a dumb concept. I mean,
It is.
That's clearly designed to denigrate young men and make them depressed and suicidal, which is very clear. And yeah, no, I go from Muppets to Profound. That's my style. That's the Dubs are on style. We go from Muppets to Profound. My last session was these morons came to me with a hook of of a weed plantation. I'm like, oh great, we're gonna make weed jokes all night. Great guys, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, I saw the Bigfoot.
Complete retards. Good lord. So I deliver, but I end up having what I thought was a really great session on that, because we just keep it going. You keep doing the no prep and you keep playing with the ideas and you make it work. And when it's focused on giving great enemies for them to destroy, or great enemies that are going to harass them until they can face that evil,
Mm-hmm.
that's reality. That's how life is. That's what we're all dealing with. We all want to destroy great evil. That's what we all focus
Yeah.
on, especially as men. And when you're delivering fantasy stories and hard fantasy in books and sort of whatever fantasy you would consider D&D, it's like you want the same thing. You really do.
Elfinder General says they hate being wrong, especially being wrong for 40 years, and they hate the truth.
Yeah, I mean, the people have been doing it wrong for 40 years. They don't want to admit it. I mean, that's the bottom line. They hate the truth with a capital T because they hate him who created from the beginning of time. So
it's true. I feel like there are people though, like Brigadine, and I talked to him a bit about this a long time ago, that like when he first heard about this, he did get offended. And he was like, screw you telling me I'm playing wrong. But then he got over himself. He looked into it and he said, no, this is the way to do it. And now he's in like multiple BROSR campaigns. I feel like that is like one of the strongest evidences for the style of play, is that people that actually give it a good faith try go on to launch their own BROSR campaigns in the future and that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how the movement how it continues against just these daily battles with people that don't like. I was the one that John Mollison was having with Steven something or other, and I tried to help him. I said, hey man, you are talking to someone who has a completely different paradigm from you, someone who long ago rejected the stuff that you think is obvious, and it's a test. Are you going to cling to your status and however many years you've been playing, or are you going to get curious and say maybe they know something that I don't about the game? And like the people that can pass that test, it seems like they all really enjoy this style of play. But the people that want to be experts and don't want to humble themselves and don't want to kneel, and maybe that gets back to the Christian comment from Bluegrass Papist, is like, if you don't want to kneel, you're not going to get in. If you want to be prideful and stand there, you're just gonna think, well, these guys are all crazy and awful and wackadoo, and they won't benefit from the way that these games have been elevated for the people trying this style. I wish I could help them get over that hurdle. I wish I could help them see, stop talking and listen for a second. Obviously, I'm not good at that myself.
God, that
So
went
maybe
on and on. Good lord. No, it's no, you're right, man. I mean, man, you definitely mid Carter. Ryan Howard would have made that a lot shorter.
I sure am no Ryan Howard.
No, I'm messing with you. Or am I?
I
No, it's people need to be humble. They need to realize that they might have some things they don't know. And that was how I went in with the Jeffro stuff recently with the Battle Bronstein. And I wanted to hype him up because I wanted people excited, even though I'm like maybe a little bit skeptical myself. But I'm like, is my skepticism based on I'm running this way and I'm prideful and I'm going to keep running this way? What is he saying?
He says, I've played since the late 70s. I learned a crap ton in the creativity lab that was Dubs Our Own.
Well, I appreciate that. That's from Robert Morgan, and I appreciate that you learned stuff because I learned stuff as well. We all learned as we were going. Dubs Our Own had some growing pains definitely at the beginning, and those have been explored by I think Steven came on here recently and talked about it. Or yeah, there's definitely some growing pains when you start a new campaign, and then you have to have players that are willing to go through those with you. And but people, as far as what you were saying before, just when you talked on and on and on, was that people do need to be humble and be like, is there something going on here that I need to learn from? And when it comes to BROSR, the answer is probably yes. Okay, because we've thought about this stuff a lot, and we're thinking about it from a deeper angle than most people are. We're not even thinking about it like do you like this class or that class? We're not thinking about it like, do you prefer spells to martial? You know what I mean? We're not even thinking about, do you like armies versus high level spells? We're thinking about a deeper level. Jeffrey's thinking about a level of like, what's going to get engagement for players? What's the thing that's most likely to heal the damage from an atomized culture? Like really deep stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where I am. And that's why I'm still doing it. Because it's like, as much as it makes me sad, the fact of the matter is that we are in kind of a geek culture right now. And what's going to get us back is to take the geeks and fix them, okay? They might be guys that are fixable. There might be guys that can be recovered. And you take them and you say, okay, you love D&D, you love role-playing games. All right, well, you're playing them wrong. And it makes me mad. And the ones who can't get over that you said that are never going to be salvageable. Never going to get over it.
So it's not a matter of pitching it or an advertising ploy. It's like, it's truly like a test of metal.
That's a test of metal. So I said on Rolling Bones, we're not looking to sell ourselves. We're looking to find the guys who will do this. We're looking to find the guys who can deliver on this stuff. We're looking to find the guys who are worth our time.
This is what I wanted to show Jeff from. Maybe if the bros were not a bunch of douchebags, then these people wouldn't react negatively. And then he laughs at that.
He laughs. Bah, ha, 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 ha. No. Yes. Jeff,
I see now why they like to make you do the animal voices.
Oh, man. No, that's right. No, if we were not so rough and harsh and stuff, no one would be talking about us right now. They just wouldn't. And now I do it because I find it funny. So, like I said, I like to tweak people. So, I've been tweaking you all night. I tweak my players. I like to tweak people's noses. So, it's the fact that I can do that on Twitter and push for something that I believe in this particular hobby at the same time is a big thing for me. So.
And there's people that can be tweaked and enjoy it, and there's people that like decide they want to end you, cancel everyone to do with you.
True. If you don't get canceled tomorrow, I'm going to be disappointed. Like I said, so because everything that is said bad about me is true. It's just all true. I am whatever you say I am.
Agree and amplify.
Why would I say I am?
Well, it looks like the chat's talking mostly about the amount of deaths that have happened in Dubs-R-On.
I haven't killed enough people lately, to my disgrace, shame. They're living, they're surviving, they're leveling. It's a horrible thing when you have a campaign you're running and everyone is living. What does Elfinder General have to say?
He says, one of the things that surprised me from the player side of the BROSR is how low level, especially level 1 characters can make a huge difference in a campaign.
That's true. If you read my recent session report, a level 1 thief burgled an entire berserker lair.
Sorry, Percy says, cancel a guy with 152 subs. Yeah, how would you know the difference?
See, everyone's getting in on my hill game, man. Stop stealing my thunder, guys. I'm the one that's talking crap to Thunder Moose, not you guys.
Right on. Know your role. So how did the level 1 guy make a difference?
He was a level 1 thief. It was played by Brigadine. What can I say? He's a good player. Yeah, the players, all the other martial characters and stuff were distracting the main bosses of the place. And Brigadine was able to get in the back rooms of the mead hall, and he found the treasure hoard, and he put in a bag of holding, and he ran out. And he found them back in the mead hall, and he said, hey, I got all their money. We need to get the heck out of here. And they ran. Now, here's the thing. That was great play, and he was definitely playing, and he got a good grade, obviously, because he's playing a thief the way it's supposed to be played. But he made some rolls, man. Because the level 1 thief is like, he had to pick a lock. It was like 13 or better. Okay, he made that. He had to like sneak. It was like 14 or better. He made that. You know, it was like he made like 3 rolls like that, and it was crazy. So, but the fact that he was bold enough to do it, even though it's like one bad roll would have got at least him killed, and maybe the whole party. It was like the type of bold play that we like in the BROSR.
The high risk, high reward, because
Yeah,
know you're getting a good story out of it either way.
Either way, if you get killed and get them all mad at you, they're going to attack your city. But if you win, then they're going to be like, "What? You took all our stuff." So it was good either way. Either way, you got a good story.
Did Jeffro tell you about the guy with the most hilarious death in Tropolis? At least since I've been playing.
Who's the guy with the most hilarious death?
Well, it's the guy that played Goldenrod that flamed out. And this was
I did not hear about this. Go ahead.
What?
I'll listen to you talk for a while. Why not?
All right, let's see if I can do it succinctly. The guy. This is when Goldenrod. The guy who played Goldenrod was already in prison, and so he's running his backup character. And I was playing a new character because Foam the Gnome was out of town for reasons of his own freedom of movement. And so I was playing a guy named Huxtable. I rolled up an assassin, but in AD&D First Edition, the rolls are random on your height and weight. And the guy was just about as heavy and tall as he could be. Like, he wasn't maxed out, but he was in like that percentile. And I'm trying to picture this 320-pound assassin who's like hiding in shadows and stuff. And I just pictured Fat Albert and Ghost Dog. And so I just took a poster of Ghost Dog and I put Bill Cosby's face on it, and that was Huxtable the assassin.
That's pretty good, actually.
And I was doing the voice, right? So that was fun too. We walk in the room and there's like some giant rats, and they run in this hole, and the guy that was playing Goldenrod sent his war dogs in after the rats. And so Jeffro just kind of makes some yelping noises into the mic, and then it goes quiet. And he got really mad that he just wasted his dogs, and then he threw all of his flaming oil at the hole, and just burnt up some rats. And then we're like, okay, guy, so we kept going. There's a room that has these crystals, and the only thing we know about them is that if you cast magic around them, they will absorb the magic, they will flash yellow, and then they will detonate. So this guy and Huxtable both just filled our sacks with those crystals.
I read the session report, but I'd love to keep going.
Oh my gosh. So we come around the corner, and Jeffro hits us with this giant 4-armed ape. And ever since the fail snail shell incident, everyone is terrified of phantasmal forces, and we disbelieve everything we see, right? So the ape comes, the rest of us hang back. This guy charges. I don't know if he thought we were going to run with him. It was that whole thing about the group either coming around a player or not. No, that one was so not. So he charges the ape. Everyone else holds position. And I think it was Brigadine. He was playing a guy named Longdrag. It was a wizard. He cast Detect Magic on the ape because we didn't believe it, because we didn't know if it was a real ape or not, right? So the guy charges, does some damage to the ape. The ape just picks the dude up and wants to run off and make a meal out of him. And then the Detect Magic spell would have hit, but it didn't because it got sucked into the pouch of crystals. So this guy gets dragged around the corner, and then we see this huge explosion. And there's just a giant sphere taken out of the tunnel where they both just got absolutely vaporized. And so you just got to understand, the guy that came in, Brigadine was in the group, and this guy came in on day one trying to be our caller and played forever, knew everything about the game. And he just had such a horrible session where he wasted his dogs, he wasted his oil, and then he just got dragged off stage and detonated. It was so ridiculous. Oh man.
So that's why you got to be careful, man. I told you my first session is Chaz, and I'm a main eventer. I still sort of sat back and watched. You got to kind of feel the session. So that's.
But you've got to be the kind of person that can enjoy. If that had been my character dying that way, I would have loved it. I would have thought it was hilarious. But this poor guy, he got legit traumatized by things that happened in the game. He couldn't talk about certain things.
Oh, that's like a Jack Trick comic book or something. Come on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so
real. It's not real. They're all made up. I know it's real time you invested, but when it's first session, you haven't even invested any time. I don't know. But that was a great session. It's a great session report. I did read that, and your description of it was much more boring than Jeffro's session report, but I like your laughing because it showed that it was fun for everyone. But
It's a good memory. It's a good memory.
I was just staring at the gap in your tooth, but it's fine.
It's hypnotic, isn't it?
It's hypnotic.
You're all welcome for this.
Out over here.
Yeah, I mean, it was in the session report, but like the subtext of like just how awkward the guy was with the group, how personally he took it, and it really probably did feel to him like we were all just picking on him as hard as we could. But that just kind of made it all the more hilarious.
That's the part that rarely goes into session reports.
Yeah,
I try to put it in a little bit. I've jumped ahead on Dubs Run session reports. I skipped like 10. But there's one in there where I was really, really upset about the way a mass combat went down. The session I named it like I hate everything and everyone. But I may drop it eventually. It's in the Discord for my players, but it's just like you don't get the context of like how everyone's feeling about everyone else. I try to put that in a little bit without being rude.
Yeah.
But there's the aspect of the social aspect of it all is really real. Like you have to, it comes down to, like I said, these are men dealing with these games. It's like,
yeah,
you bully people to be better. And if they take it, then they're part of the brotherhood. They're in. And if they don't, they're done. They're out. You're like, oh, that guy got his feelings because you just made a joke and you called him a name. Like the fact that you laughed through all my heel stuff, this shows that you just basically don't have a backbone primarily.
Yeah, I'm a realist.
Yeah. So it also shows that you're a bro, and we're glad to have you in the group. And we're glad to have somebody new who has a new voice, a new opinion, a new concept to all this. Because about the time you joined, I feel like we were all getting a little bit musty and mildewed with our way of approaching things. So we needed some new voices. We needed some new blood. Honestly.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It has turned. I mean, I don't know how long I would have stayed in the hobby if I'd have just kept trying to play 5e and it not working out the way I wanted it to. And this is totally. It's become my favorite. I haven't played video games at all since I started this. I used to have a problem with a game called Destiny 2. I have absolutely no interest in it anymore.
See, we cured your addiction.
Right? See, there you go.
Inferior MMORPG. So that is good, my friend. But I think is everyone dropped out of the chat, or are they still around? Because
there's a few of them still hanging on for dear life.
Yeah, like when I saw there was only like 5 people, I was like, well, we can make this run long, and the people who really care about this BROSR stuff can keep sitting here. This is not, Jeffro's still here. He will never leave as long as he thinks we might say his name. He will stick around. So, Jeffro, I'm saying your name now. Same with Rube, Brown Wizard. Brown Wizard will sit around while you say his module sucks. So he will sit around for anything. He does not care. This guy doesn't care. He will sit around while you sneeze into the microphone while he sits there.
Oh my gosh, this is so great. This is so great.
I'm gonna cry myself up.
Did I just break you? I just broke you. Yes.
I was finally flubbed.
He couldn't keep the kayfabe.
I flubbed myself.
The dubs. Only the dubs can flub the dubs.
Oh man. No one will listen to this. This is horrible. This is the worst podcast that's ever been recorded. And I listened to alt-right podcasts in the 2015, and they were hysterically bad. But no one will listen to this. If this gets 100 listens, I will be shocked. But here's this guy.
The numbers are dropping as we go.
Oh, it's dropping. You can just watch them. If I was technologically savvy and not a boomer, I would just be watching them drop. But I am. And just as I drop, I'm watching them drop. It's crazy. So we still have Rob Morgan, Brown Wizard, Jeffro. We got the hardcores. They just want to hear their names said. Elf Finder General. You have been in Dubs Ron, and thank you, sir. Thank you. You've done some great stuff in Dubs Ron. He rolled Manson, who was controlling Stormbringer during Operation Muscle Hunter.
Okay.
So he's a big deal. He's legitimate. Now, since this podcast is horrifically long and no one cares anymore, I'm now going to call out some people I should have thanked on Rolling Bones, which is a much better and more succinct podcast with more people listening. Brigadine, obviously, we've mentioned him a million times, which his head's probably exploded from how much we're pumping it up with hot air. Jared Jared's great. He played Fagor in Tropolis. He played some multiple characters in Dubs Run, including Daria, who's a blade dancer and just controls a piece of land in Dubs Run. We got Holyfeld, who controlled the spaceship faction in Dubs Run for a while. He plays a bunch of PCs.
Is he the guy that threw the sword at the sun?
He is. That is the guy that threw the sword of the sun. So there you go. You can thank him for the fact that you enjoyed Mr. Wargaming, John Mollison, which is a much better channel than this. He threw the sword in the sun, and John Mollison had to deliver on that because I demanded it. Chanticleer is
that was you.
Everything is me, dude. Everything we're talking about in BROSR comes from me initially. Everything. Right. Chanticleer is back on Twitter. He's played many characters in Dubs Ron. We got Vince Maximus, who's a great patron in Dubs Ron, who's currently playing the Trabajo character in Dubs Ron, who's a Florida Man class, which is made by not John Dacre, who's a terrific player.
Is Long Florida in Dubs Ron?
It is not.
Okay.
Unless it wants to be. We'll see if he wants to drop it. I don't think he plays one time because he has a couple players that don't like that so much. So.
Okay.
Crossface Killer is great. He's on Twitter. You can find him on there. He's just a great BROSR guy. He's not in Dubs Ron, but he's a great BROSR guy. Grant is one of my players. I don't remember. I don't think he has a Twitter handle, but Grant is his character, and he's a really great player. Standing Mountain is a great player. He's relatively new to Dubs Ron. I talked about needing some new blood because we're all getting mildewed and old and stodgy. So Standing Mountain is new, and he's killing it. He's got Standing Mountain was his Elven spell sword, and he's got a barbarian named Rory in Dubs Ron who has been to Barsoom, so he's doing some great things.
He's ignoring these just like he does your downtime requests.
I ignore everything. Kyle O'Connor is a terrific patron. Obviously, he's the only one that was able to survive Dracon's mad bloodthirst and bloodlust to destroy every other patron in my campaign world and eliminate all interest and intrigue in my campaign world by murdering everyone. So Kyle has somehow survived that. Obviously, we've talked about many times. Macho Mandoff, I believe his real name is Chris. He's a great player. He played Ferrigno the Green Dragon in Dubs Ron. He's playing Mandoff, Macho Mandoff, in the Tropolis campaign to such an extreme degree that Tropolis had to be changed. Jeffro had to shift everything, make a battle Bronstein after he flipped the table, threw a hissy fit, and lost his mind.
Yeah.
Those are my shout outs. If I didn't name you, you're probably not worth talking about.
You put Jeffro to sleep.
Jeffro, Jeffro,
when you stop saying his name.
Jeffro Johnson is a really good thinker of the BROSR, and he is also really he wrote the essay book, and so basically, Jeffro, we're talking about you. So wake up.
Yeah. Well, he's also got How to Win at D&D, which is a teaser, a bon mot, if you will, appetizer for his forthcoming book that I'm really excited for.
I'm excited about that if he ever writes it. It would be very interesting if it actually came out. I used that book to sort of like, you know, where you have like a table that isn't quite level. I put it under the leg of the table because it's so thin. It's like the perfect size to stick under a table leg, because I read it and said, this doesn't talk about me. So I don't see where I'm interested. He expects me to talk about him when I go on my very rare podcasts on Main Event, Rolling Bones, and Mid Card.
This is like that intimate concert that like the big band does on the way to something else, where like nobody knew they were just going to show up at a restaurant or something.
Look, when I realized no one was here, I just started doing the B-sides.
There you go.
All right. My very first concert was the Smashing Pumpkins on their Adore tour, which was not a popular album, which I loved. But everyone was like, "Why do you only play those songs?" They're like, "This is how we roll. We play.
We don't ever get to play these songs.
We don't get to play them." So since no one's here, we talked about things that are intimate to me and are important to me. Now, if I go back on a Main Event podcast, a podcast with actual listeners as opposed to hecklers or whatever is here, I will talk about things that are of interest to normies and regular people. But since all you weirdos are here, I will talk about weirdo things and go on for 2 hours about nonsense while I get drunk.
So, session reports. That's like a BROSR thing that's not, they list one-to-one time. They list rules.
I was ready to wrap up, dude. What are you talking about?
I don't know.
Session reports. Yes, we write a lot of session reports. What do you think of that? You think I agree it's important, but why do you think it's important?
I just feel like it's people that play conventional are interested in actual let's plays or actual plays. And I think those are kind of boring to watch, but I'm really entertained by session reports. And I don't know why the one is better than the other, but it seems like BROSR is like all in on the session reports and not so much on the actual play stuff.
Did you read the early dubs are on session reports where it's kind of like more like novella style?
I haven't read the old stuff.
Okay.
No,
I thought
you go back and start.
I thought you were a big session reporter. No, I would recommend against it. It was not a good look. Okay. I started realizing early on that what was really going to be interesting to read about was like what the DM was thinking at the time or what he thought the players wanted. You know what I mean? Like the mental state.
Yeah, the kind of the how-to, not the what.
Yeah, like a how-to.
How.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I went all in on that. My last session report, I'm like, okay, how did I roll this up? Why did I decide this stats or whatever?
That's the good stuff.
I think that's useful to DMs because it's like, okay, here's how I did it. Now, if you think my ideas are stupid, you're like, you can correct it because you think I made a mistake here or there or there. But if you just write it like I did in my early dubs run sessions of like story, it's not useful because you can't do anything with it. And in hindsight, when I read session reports that are story based, I get bored. Like I'm not into it because I don't know their story. I'm not in their story. I don't care about it.
All right, man. That's 2 hours. We don't have to keep this going. I really appreciate you coming on here. I think this was probably my best show ever, and not even a little bit because of the rightful abuse that I was heaped with.
It was rightful. It was rightful.
Right on, man. So to you and to my dozen viewers out there, thanks for being with us.
All 5 of you are just great people.
Oh, both of you.
Both of you.
Oh, both of you just waiting for your own name to get said.
Kyle O'Connor, Elffinder General, Brown Wizard, Planet Tobar TV, Jeff Furlow.
It's not like the end of a TV show where you gotta put all the names.
I'm doing it because they need it. That's why they're still here.
Next week, Macho Mandolph himself.
Wow, that's a big deal, man. That's a big deal. Gelatinous Rube.
Gelatinous Rube.
Here he is.
Everybody cover your beards.
Cover your beards. I don't know what that means. It sounds.
You need to watch another one of my episodes if you can find it. Watch the one.
Don't watch any of your episodes.
It was Gelatinous Rube and Brown Wizard Winston, and Rube just kind of stole the show for a bit. We will play in the dark. Taxi theme song playing. You guys are cracking me up. We need to end it. Thanks everybody. Ending thought. BDubs, put you on the spot.
My ending thought is, go to church, go to mass, submit to Rome, become Catholic, pray a daily rosary, and play D&D games worth playing.
Right on.
Make something for the young men of the future, for yourself, and those that you're trying to help, and celebrate masculinity in your games, lift weights, and do your thing. Oh, good Lord. What's Macho saying?
He says, I've been up on a ladder for the last 30 minutes, so I can't turn it off.
Macho, I don't know what that means. Sounds like a euphemism. Sounds kind of gross. So, everyone, go out there. Pray for me tonight, please. I will be praying for all of you. And I thank you for listening for 2 hours of this nonsense. So,
right on.
Bless you all.